Chapter 1. As different as black and white. Sometimes, white people, we just suck. And I hate that. I hate it for my wife, for my friends, and for all people of color. The truth is, too often, we knowingly or unknowingly say and do things that, at best, marginalize, and at worst, hurt people of color deeply. It's not always intentional. It's just a reality of the cultural beast we've created. The thing I, as a white man, had to learn right off the bat is that in Western culture, white is seen as normal. Everything else is different. It's that simple. Adaeze had been saturated in white culture her entire life without having to seek it out, and yet her normal and my normal look very, very different. And they have from the very beginning.
Where we come from. My Jesus-loving, intentional parents were born and raised in Nigeria. After they were married, they moved to London to pursue their medical licenses, which is where my three awesome, perfect balance of protective older brothers and I were born. When I was 2, we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the heart of the Bible Belt, because my parents wanted to send us to Christian schools, and the schools in London were not up to their spiritual standards. My parents never really taught us about differences in people, and it seemed like they never had to. They just led by example. They instilled in us a confidence in Jesus Christ and a sense of pride as Nigerian Americans. They were the first in their families to leave Nigeria. Once our relatives saw that we had all survived, a lot of them followed our family to the States, and it didn't take long for my brothers and me to figure out that we did not live up to their expectations. For example, our aunts and uncles would expectantly speak Igbo to us, only to have us stare blankly back or mispronounce one of the few words we did know, resulting in a disdainful chai or some other of disapproval. Though our parents never forced us to fit our relatives' expectations, I was still very aware that, in my extended family's eyes, I wasn't Nigerian enough. Ironically, people in Tulsa always made sure to point out that my parents still had their Nigerian accent, to which my mom would semi-jokingly retort, "I don't have an accent, you have an accent." She wasn't wrong. Where she was from, everyone talked like her. Still, she never understood why everyone kept pointing it out. Frankly, neither did I. I learned the word accent from Tulsans who labeled my parents' voices that way. And whenever the word was uttered, it dripped with so much otherness that I could understand why my mom developed a disdain for the word.
Obviously, my parents are not Nigerian. I definitely was not born in London. I was born in Pennsylvania, but we moved to Spokane, Washington when I was in 2nd grade. Both my parents spent their childhoods in Virginia, and they carried those Southern manners with them all the way out to the Pacific Northwest. My mom, for example, would bring home-baked cookies to the new neighbors when they moved in, which apparently wasn't a thing in the PNW. And as a proper Southern lady, she was always appalled to see people walking around in the grocery stores in sweatpants. And yes, people made comments on my parents' Southern accents and habits when I was growing up. However, most of the comments were endearing. They would usually come in the form of something like, "Oh, your mom's just so cute," or "I just love your parents. They're so nice." Southern hospitality really shines when not everybody does it. I never felt like I was all that different from the people around me. I acted like my friends, I dressed like my friends, I looked like my friends. Even though my family was Southern, I always identified as being from the upper left USA. It was all I knew, and I seemed to fit in there.
Being the only Black girl in my class, or one of 3 Black kids at most, I experienced otherness early and often. Since my maiden name is Azubuike, 99.9% of the time, I was the first name on my teacher's roll call list. And 99.9% of the time, the teacher's eyes would widen in fear as she stared at the first entry on the list that had both a first name and a last name she was terrified to attempt.